Jirard Khalil is a creator I've been following for a long time. The Completionist, absolutely love their video. There's actually a 45-minute Crisis Core video I've been wanting to react to them for a hot minute. From my understanding, Jirard Khalil did do a college thesis on Crisis Core as well. Themes presented within, absolutely awesome creator, been following for a number of years. Companies don't want you playing classic games. We're going to see what Jirard has to say. He's got a lot of years behind his belt, and I definitely I admire his opinion, and I definitely take it with, you know, I take his opinion, absolutely.
87% of classic games are commercially unavailable.
Okay.
Hey everyone, I'm Jirard the Completionist, and a couple months ago, I went crazy and purchased every game available on the North American Wii U and 3DS eShop.
I actually missed this, unfortunately.
The name of video game preservation. Today, we're continuing that bizarre journey by showcasing some of the exclusive titles forever locked to that console. But more importantly, we're digging into a very upsetting study recently conducted by the Video Game History Foundation that unequivocally reveals some terrible truths about the video game industry and answers the question that some of you have asked on the eShop video. Why doesn't this dude just pirate all the games?
You know, that is a very good question. I'm very curious what his stance is going to be, because as I said, I take Jirard Khalil, I take what he says with a lot of respect. I mean, he's got experience under his belt in this field, and I'm very curious as to what he's going to say. Absolutely.
So for those of you unaware, we recently hosted our event Preserved Play, our annual charity event to raise money for the Video Game History Foundation and their preservation efforts. The past 2 years, we've been joined by Frank Cafaldi and Kelsey Lewin, the co-directors of the VGHF. You'll hear more from them in a little bit. But at this year's Preserved Play, the Wii U and its complete library was our big star.
I do want to interject here really fast. This is to add my own personal experience with game preservation and as well as availability of content. Used to love a game on the Xbox 360 called Gundam Dynasty Warriors 3. I mean, if you know about it, you know about it. It's effectively just Dynasty Warriors with the Gundam skins over it. Loved 00 in it. It was I 100%ed that game. Bought the DLC. I recently got a 360 again to go and play it, and unfortunately there is content that is no longer available due to quote-unquote licensing issues. So content that I had purchased online, is no longer available for play. It's really not. What I mean by that is that I tried going to the store. It is available in Europe. It is available in Japan, but for some reason, some licensing issue within the US, Microsoft Xbox Live, even though I did purchase it, even though there will be a record of me purchasing it, is not available for me to download. I do think that I think we've gone a little too far. Companies have gone a little too far in this aspect of gatekeeping things. I will continue to voice my objections towards Nintendo just in a professional capacity. There are people that absolutely I would feel would enjoy Coliseum, XD Gale of Darkness, two of my honestly favorite games of all time. Unfortunately, you know, the GameCube release was the only release of those. GameCubes are getting kind of hard to find. Wii's are getting hard to find. I know there's that alleged kill switch date for a lot of Wii systems, the original Wii's, right? However, that is hearsay. I have yet to have actual source content that there's a date that all Wii's will self-destruct. Please take that with a grain of salt and do your research on that. Or even things like that might have been available on... Weren't Pokemon Diamond Pearl, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Platinum, the DS titles, weren't they available on the DSi shop? So when the DSi shop goes down, guess what we don't have access to anymore? Animal Crossing Wild World was on the Wii U. I actually have it on my Wii U over there. Something that once I get my new model and rebrand, I would like to go through a lot of these games again. Unfortunately, now you cannot access it. So thus it comes into, and I think this is a professional argument that needs to be had, if a company wants to release a product, and people want the product, but the company is not willing to facilitate the release of the product if they say, oh, well, we don't want to release it anymore. We don't want to release XD Gale of Darkness, Pokemon Stadium, not just even on Nintendo, right? We don't want to keep up this DLC you bought, to even an egregious case of Destiny 2, a game that I honestly play a lot of. I have a lot of time into. I like how the game feels, but unfortunately I don't think feel like I like the direction where it's going. If they're going to sunset 2+ expansions, I think this comes into a debate of preserving games and, what is reasonable versus what is not reasonable, and if it is unreasonable, what is the moral and ethical way of going about playing these old games. This is my own personal experience and my own kind of thing perspective I'm coming on with this, and I'm sure Jirard's going to like this. I just want to do a side to kind of set the tone a little bit for where Kip is coming from.
Some of these games were titles I had completed on the show, like Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, or games that I know of but never really touched, like Xenoblade Chronicles X. But have you ever heard of Outside the Realm, or Shadow Archery, or Eternal Evasion. There was the game simply titled Games for Toddlers, which was a medley of activities that could perhaps fit the loose definition of games. It might even indeed be enjoyed by toddlers, maybe. We discovered the delightful joy of Spin the Bottle, Bumpy's Party, a party game which was honestly a blast with a ton of polish, and each activity was very creative.
Yeah.
Dance to not lose!
We're dancing, are we not?
I don't know, are you?
I don't know, are we?
The inverse of that were games like Color Cubes, which felt like a developer's first attempt at programming. Every new game was a surprise, but nothing will top the unparalleled perfection of the Wii U exclusive gem that is Meme Run.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Is this a meme I don't know? It's 52%.
Well, actually,
it.
chat thought otherwise, and during Preserved Play, we got into a weird donation war with Meme Run, a dead-ass gambling game called Skunky Bee Super Slot Saga #1, and my producer playing Wii Fitness U.
Amazing.
What can I say? Sometimes our charity streams get a little weird. You should stop by next time.
Jirard.
I actually really need to. I haven't turned into a Jirard Khalil completion stream in a hot minute, and I feel like I've done a disservice. Absolutely. Like, if this doesn't sell you on it, I don't know what will.
Yeah. You gonna behave?
Now, even with the Wii U and 3DS released over a decade ago in 2012 and 2011 respectively, I'm sure very few folks would consider those consoles having classic games on them. And to a larger extent, the Video Game History Foundation agrees. For their study, which I've linked down in the description below, the VGHF drew a line in the sand with titles releasing before 2010 being considered classic, as 2010 was when dominant digital distribution took hold. But okay. With those parameters established of all games pre-2010 being defined as classic, what does the study actually show?
I think a lot of people within the gaming community inherently know that most of video game history is not available to them legitimately. And no one has ever put a number to that. No one's ever...
Let us take into account the Warcraft 3 Reforged situation. Did Blizzard not pull, if you had a copy of the original Warcraft 3, it was replaced with Reforged with no ability to read down the original Warcraft 3? Did that not happen as a situation citable by Activision Blizzard's own marketing team, own PR? So there's also evidence of companies that will retroactively, they'll take away titles you have owned and replace it with theirs. Activision Blizzard seems to be spearheading this. Overwatch 1, right? As Kip had 4 copies of Overwatch. I thought it was decently fun, honestly. If I could play Overwatch 1 again, I absolutely would. But now I no longer own Overwatch 1 because now it's Overwatch 2, and I don't want that. I had no say in that. I think that's taking it to the next level that we do not want. And I think any opposition to that should be seen as, it should be, like, some of it's going to be just people complain to complain, don't get me wrong. However, there are people like me that are going to say, look, I didn't pay for this. I didn't sign, I didn't sign up. I didn't sign a form saying, yes, I want to revoke my copy of Overwatch 1 to 2. Oh, well, it's in the NDA. I mean, that might be. And it could be in the NDA. Or 9 days, excuse me. EULA. However, I think you need to make that a bold section when you have these EULAs and make it unskippable. Have a little checkbox that says, I agree to waiving my rights on this. Absolutely.
Done a formal study to see whether that's true or not.
To the untrained eye, you might even think it's pretty easy to get classic games. I mean, there's the Nintendo Switch Online service that's providing, popular retro titles like Mario.
That is technically providing games as a service, but you do not technically own the title, and that is an issue.
Mario and Zelda, and companies are putting out collections of old games, pretty frequently. So we needed to prove that it's worse than it looks.
Yes.
For every Mario game that's available, there's hundreds of less popular games that are lost. Right now, the video game industry believes and has convinced the US Copyright Office that the reissue market is thriving and there's no need for the kinds of protections and exemptions that would make better game preservation possible. We needed to actually prove with numbers and science just how off base they actually are.
So, yes, well, for every Mario, we lose 100 others. You know what 2 games that I really would love to see, actually? It's a couple of the Lord of the Rings games, actually, which will never be re-released. There's never going to be re-releases of these titles. So one is actually going to be, oh god, why is it being so weird? Oh, there we go. So one is going to be Lord of the Rings, The Third Age. If you've never played this game, it is a GameCube era game, GameCube, PS2. I actually never played the GBA version, Xbox. It was, as I lovingly call it, a Lord of the Rings fan fiction. It's a Final Fantasy turn-based Lord of the Rings game with a Lord of the Rings fan fiction. You fight the Isaurian at the end. It's actually kind of neat. You can see Denethor fall up the Hall of Minas Tirith. It's actually a, unironically, really in-depth game. However, we will never... You're right. For every Super Mario 3 that we get on the Nintendo's pay up to, what is it now, $75 a year for the all the package, right? The base and then the plus, right? We lose something like this, or which a lot of other people like. I notoriously do not play RTS games. I'm just bad at them. I really am, unfortunately, just bad at them. However, Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth is an RTS that I could definitely get behind, and I actually really like playing it. Apparently, there's an HD remaster or HD, fan project, hoping that doesn't get cease and desisted. However, yes, for every game we do, we save by having it in an online service model, games as a service, pay subscription. You don't pay us anymore. You don't have it as a subscription. We do unfortunately lose art and titles like this, and it's a damn shame that we're losing them. We are losing them. This video does hit really near and dear to me. I know I'm pausing a lot. One, transformative. Two, I feel like there is valid input that I can put in on this. These are two games that I've played personally. I'm sure people in chat could list 20 games off the top of their head that no longer have access to anymore. We don't have access to, outside of a physical cartridge, we don't have Pokemon Black or White anymore, right? Black 2, White 2. And if any digital release they had, they're no longer there. So we don't have that. Super Mario RPG, right? Legend of the Seven Stars, that was on the Wii U. I think it's coming to the Switch subscription pay model thing, but I mean, you don't own the game at that point. I do think that this is a worrying trend if this continues, absolutely. I think this is something that does need to be signal boosted and discussed before it is unfortunately too late.
The unfortunate reality is that the availability rates of games never rose above 20% for any 5-year period examined in this study, with the oldest games faring the worst. The study found that less than 1% of games released before 1980 have been reissued, stating, collectively, the game industry has recommercialized less than 1/5 of all historical games, leaving nearly 90% unavailable from rights holders. The study took an in-depth look at specific consoles and ecosystems to further cement their findings. So, let's get similarly granular for a moment with the Game Boy Advance. For example, if you loved pinball and wanted a kick of nostalgia with Pokemon Pinball Ruby or Sapphire,
Yep.
or maybe you were curious about the often forgotten Mario Pinball Land, until March of 2023 this year, there were 2 legally available options. You could either make a purchase on the Wii U Virtual Console, or you would need the original cartridge and hardware.
Yep.
Now with the eShop's closure, both of these pinball games can now only be purchased on the aftermarket. Buying games secondhand comes with a myriad of issues. There are obvious issues like the fact
I will state here, in regards to someone that is an active Pokemon player, I love Pokemon. Part of the issue that comes with relying on a third party is the fakes are getting really good. The fake cartridges, not the reissue, excuse me. You know what I'm talking about, right? The imitation cartridges where they're clearly just someone slaps it in a chip, puts it in. It's not an official original cart. They're getting very convincing. You could theoretically walk into a pawn shop. Someone sold them a imitation Pokemon Ruby or Pokemon Fire Red, and you could buy it and have no idea you're buying a fake. You have to have a trained eye for this. You have to know what you're looking for, which a lot of pawn shops do. They're getting really convincing. And that, honestly, that leads into another whole issue where, is the company, so let's say in this case Nintendo, hypothetically, if they don't want to reissue something like Pokemon Fire Red, which is one of my favorite games in the franchise, love the Sevi Isles, and they make it so that they don't reissue it, but then there's a second, and then you're relying on the third party market, but the third party market is getting flooded with imitation copies, and then they say, well, well, that's a pirated copy. You can't have that. We're gonna fine you. It's, I feel like Nintendo is unfortunately creating their own problem here. One, because it leads to unnecessary legal battles. Two, there are genuinely people out there that want to pay it. They'll pay the $100+, whatever it is now, for a Pokemon Fire Red copy. They really will. But they also could just get shafted by a seller who's just gonna sell them a $10 repro cart, right? So that's not a good answer, too, because while the buyer may have good intentions, and I absolutely had good intentions when I bought my copy, absolutely, I own an official copy, paid out the butt for it, but I do have one. The seller might not necessarily have the best intentions, or they might, I read every eBay listing, let's put it that way. When I think of buying something on eBay or something, I read the listing thoroughly. The seller might not have the best intentions, or they might try to mask that it's a repro cart. You have to ask the seller, and then they'll disclose, oh, yes, it is a repro cart. It's not a real cart, And then I, as the buyer, would be in trouble for that. So, obviously then it goes on to the Pokemon Company, logistical, operational costs. Is this going to be feasible for us to actually remake this? I understand that. I understand that from a business standpoint. It is a situation where Nintendo is unfortunately creating their own problems. So in regards to reissues, repros, I wanted to add that to this discussion.
The fact that you can't currently resell digital games. And then there's the fact that companies aren't producing the older hardware anymore, so you may have the game, but no means to play it. But it gets worse, as the used game prices have risen by 33% year to year starting in 2021. There's no denying the fact that resellers are taking advantage of the sudden interest in retro video games over the last several years. Buying games second...
absolutely. Let's go on a little journey right now. Let's go on a little journey, because I have firsthand experience in this. Let's go to Amazon really quick. The official Amazon listing for Pokemon White version 2, 16% off, $404. Chat, $404 for Pokemon White. $43 for Pokemon X. That is over MSRP. $40, that's still technically over MSRP. Some of these are a little more, or a little less egregious, I should say. Platinum, $184. $184. And that doesn't stop there. That's just if you want to go through Amazon. Let's say if you want to go to eBay, right? If you want to go to eBay, so let's go here. Pokemon Black 2, White 2 for Nintendo 3. I guarantee you this is a repro, unless this is actually just a bid. Let's see here. And that's the thing, is when you do listings like this, you have to, one, see if it's Japanese. You have to see if it's going to be region locked or not. Two, you have to dig into and say, okay, is this going to be a fake? Is this going to be a repro? Because you really have to dig for this. Now let's go to Pokemon XD. XD Yellow Darkness. 100 disc only. $149.99. That's what happens when you leave collectibles, as somebody comes from TCGs, somebody comes from tabletops. This is what happens when you leave your business in the hands of a third-party market that's not regulated, that there's no influx in. This is the image that Nintendo is gaining for games that they're done with, is that they're just going to be expensive and they're not going to touch it again. This, unfortunately, is the reality that a lot of players, and I say a lot of Pokemon, it is other games too. Like, let's go something that's not, let's see here. Xbox 360 Halo 3 Edition. You're paying out the butt if you want this. I mean, yeah, it's going to be, oh, well, Kip, you're looking at a special edition console. I mean, yeah, it's not just a Nintendo-specific problem, and while this is a technically limited time event, there are other limited events. Nintendo just seems to be a little egregious at it, and they seem to kind of be the one everybody whips on, because they just do it a lot. I mean, retro games, while we still have access to Halo 3 Limited Edition, which I actually got the night before shutdown, there's just... It's a market that almost feels like it does feel like it's ripe for scalping. It really does. This is exactly what he's talking about.
Hand used to be easy, cheap, simple, and quite honestly, a hobby for so many people worldwide. But trying to do so on a wider scale, say for the purposes of a research project, that has become untenable. Now, some of the Game Boy's broader ecosystems is offered through Nintendo Switch Online, but at the time of this recording, there are only 24 titles to play across both the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance lineups on that service. From a consumer standpoint, this seems like a paltry amount, but from a preservationist or research point of view, those numbers are absolutely abysmal. Like, look,
honestly, I'm actually... So, we all remember the Mario 3D Collection, right? So, Switch Mario 3D Collection. I think it is? And I promise this is actually going somewhere with this. So, we have the Switch Mario 3D Collection, right? What was this one? It was one with Galaxy. It was the one with... No, this wasn't the one. It was the one with Galaxy. This one. Galaxy, Sunshine, and All-Stars. You know what it is? Because we had the same issues on Dolphin emulators years ago, where what is it? The was it Bianco? Was it Bianco Hills? Bianco Hills, the dirty cave, and you had the lines that showed the pathing of the floating tiles. All this is 3 emulators slapped into a UI. That is all this is. That is all that your 3D All-Stars is. Why can't Nintendo do this more? It clearly just means they load 3 ROMs or 3 ISOs into a thing. They can make a series out of this. I'm actually surprised we haven't got a 3D All-Stars 2, actually, unironically. You know, so we got Sunshine technically. You know, I think this does open the door, because they could make a killing off of this. They could have a Switch cartridge where it's got, like, you know, your Pokemon Gen 1 collection. It's got red, it's got blue, it's got yellow, and you would own it. And honestly, they could make a killing off of it logistically because of how much they could charge for it. They could charge a full $70 if they want to do it. Tears of the Kingdom's full $70, right? But the ease of it logistically, all they have to do is just slap it into a cart, a UI that leads to 3 different emulators. So, I mean, why can't they just do that more? That would fix their problem. I mean, well, I'm sure there's business reasons they don't want to, but, you know, it is one of those things that Nintendo's creating their problems. This could be how they solve it.
From the study, on screen right now is every Game Boy game, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance title produced physically. Yep. And now we'll show you all the ones that are commercially available today.
Yep.
You see how bad this is? Services like Nintendo Switch Online are a step in the right direction and could serve as a valuable tool in the future, but this is barely even a band-aid when faced with the crushing reality of the disappearing state of classic games, let alone online services just shutting down. Most of the titles that exist on the Nintendo Switch Online are Nintendo-developed or published titles first party, and yes, every now and again, a Game Boy Advance collection might come out, like in the case of Castlevania, or maybe we'll see a remake like the Advance Wars 1 and 2 series, and we'll touch on those shortly. I can also understand that the licensing for those titles like these, especially in the case of bankruptcies and acquisitions, can be exceptionally tricky. But for games like Rayman Advance, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, and countless others which existed on the Nintendo Wii U Virtual Console...
You know, what about wasn't Crystal Chronicles, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, a really popular... Was it a GameCube game? It was either GameCube or DS. I think it was GameCube, right? Have we ever seen a Crystal Chronicles re-release? As far as I'm aware, no. You have gems that are just lost to time, and that, you know, a company could re-release to moderate, if not incredible success. But they'd rather... If I see AAA in a modern game, I just assume the game's bad, honestly. Like you know how Redfall came out? That's to me what a AAA title, when you're labeling a game as AAA, just means right out the gate. And yeah, so you have games like Destiny, where, as I said, I have a lot of time in it. I'm aware after Final Shape, I'm getting ready for Bungie to just pull, like how D1 is right now, how like the servers are still up, but there's not really content being made for it, and there's not really any fixes or anything, right? Same thing. I am expecting that after Final Shape. I'm going to play through Final Shape, don't get me wrong, unless something this season absolutely just breaks me off from it, and I'm aware that I'm going to be going into Final Shape without a lot of friends, because a lot of friends, unless they see Bungie get their act together, they're not going to play Final Shape. You know, and I can't fault them for that. In fact, I respect them for saying, you know, no, this is my limit. You know, so we have all these games like Halo Infinite. We have all these games like Redfall, that, you know, Destiny, that want to be this live service, right? But even Nintendo, we're gonna just say that Nintendo's, you know, their bundles that they do, the 25 and the extra 40, right, where you get the N64 games and the SNES games, right? To me, that's a live service. You're paying for a service to access these games as long as you have an internet connection within, 72 hours between check-ins, right? So to me, that is a live service. I do classify this as a live service, and unfortunately, Nintendo just is not putting out enough content for a live service. It's my same issue with Halo Infinite. It's actually my same issue with Destiny. 3 months, in my opinion, is way too long for a season for the amount of content that they put out, you know? No, don't harass the team. Don't harass Destiny. That is not my intent. My intent is to showcase that if you're going to be a live service, you have to go into it. And so with everything moving to live services, yeah, things like these are going to get forgotten and or pay-gated and or walled. But when the live services fail, right? When the live services fail, or your avenues to get these, the Wii U eShop, right, or 3DS eShop, for example, when they go down, what then? How do you go from there? And that is meant to be an open, ambiguous question. In the comments, if you want, definitely put your answer, what you think the answer could be. That is the situation we're at. We are more than happy to pay for an avenue. But when the avenues are cut off, they're non-existent, they are repealed, they are taken away from us, what do we do then? Because we still want to play games. We still want to play the games that we want to play. And I am more than happy, and I've gone on record, to just pay $130 for a Switch double pack of XD Gale of Darkness and Coliseum that Nintendo could just slap 2 emulators in a UI, All-Star style, and just ship it as a cart. Or maybe even it's just, digital only. At the very least, I have access to it, right? I am more than happy to pay for these. What about the other people that don't want to pay $200+ for this, right? This is the worrying argument here, because if this doesn't stop, and we're already along the train here, this train is already moving. We are trying to figure out what can we do to make this reasonable. That way we can accommodate you as a business, and we can accommodate us for wanting to do what we want to do, right? That is what we're trying to answer here. And if we let this continue, if we let this go unchecked, it will get worse. It just will get worse. There's no if, there's no but, there's no maybe. If this continues and a agreement is not met, this will just continue to get worse, and we will still continue to lose more games.
But not yet on the Switch, there's a level of willful neglect that seems to exist here. So what's the other option that most people go to when they want to play classic games?
Yarhar!
Look, I am not naive. We know that illegally downloading games from the internet and playing them for free is something that a lot of people do. And for them,
audible gasp!
That's the solution as far as preservation goes. But it
Allegedly.
doesn't work for everyone.
Chat is correct. Allegedly, people will go and yarhar on the internet and play games for free. Allegedly.
Some of us don't want to break the law on the advice of our probationary officers.
Not even probationary offers. Once again, people are more than happy to pay as long as it's a reasonable price. Absolutely.
Some of us. But let's be honest here. Knowing where to find ROMs and how to emulate them, or even worse, learning how to modify your delicate old consoles without breaking them, isn't just something that everybody feels comfortable doing.
No, if you hand me a soldering, what is it, to solder things onto the boards, I'm gonna know jack all what to do, and I will in fact do more harm than good. That's why I actually seek out people for any modifications. Like I have a GameCube that can go to HDMI. Unfortunately, the laser is a little, so I can't actually use it. But I digress. The others entirely retro hardware fixes, etc. So it just, not everyone. It is a specific skill set. It is,
or can do, with limited supplies of available hardware and resources.
Yes.
I'm not worried about nerds like me. I'm worried about normal people being able to access games. And right now, there just isn't a very good, clear, legal path that I think has long-term viability.
Let me paint you a picture here. We're going to take a journey here really quick on a hypothetical. Kip, being the nerd he is, plays a lot of Pokemon. And say I'm at an SCA event, say I'm at a meet and greet, say something, and hey Kip, I've been watching some of your content, I wanted to give Pokemon a try, what is your recommendation, right? Well, honestly, Sword and Shield's not a bad place to start, Scarlet and Violet kind of has their issues, I had a lot of fun with it, however, just be aware, if you do go Scarlet and Violet, while there is upcoming DLC, there is a lot of game issues with it, there's a lot of frame rate issues, a lot of stability issues, still a issue with saves in Pokemon Go that has not been patched. I believe Sword and Shield would be a more stable experience for you. If you're wanting a more retro title, honestly, I would try Let's Go. Let's go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu. I think you could really enjoy it as an intro game. And people have done this. I've had a couple people that got back into Pokemon, or one person that got into Pokemon because I was saying things like this. And can you imagine if they're like, well, I want to go back and play the original Pokemon games. I want to try Crystal. I mean, I heard there was a Suicune quest line. So about that, you can't legally play Crystal anymore if you don't have it. What? What do you mean, Kip? What do you mean I can't legally play it? So you see about that. It used to be a 3DS title. Keyword is used to. Nintendo pulled support for that. Player looking at getting Pokemon. Getting into Pokemon. I don't want to play this anymore. Like, they're gatekeeping this? Why? Well, you see, there's a lot behind that. But at the end of the day, they just said, nah, we're not doing this anymore. We're not having this as a service anymore. Can you just imagine just someone who is... You're telling someone about this series, and you're trying to explain why you've loved this series for years, and all this series has done for you, you know? Crystal is one of my favorite games. It really is. Can you imagine the person, just that downcast feeling they're going to have when I tell them you can't do that, right? All because the service got taken down? So what is the next logical step, allegedly, that they would do? They would seek it out online. Is there not allegedly a link to the past randomizer in the browser, right? You know, is there not allegedly places you could download old Game Boy Color games? Right. However, then, you know, you get the boop, 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 FBI open up right on them because, well, you download that illegally. But it's no longer available, so how can I get it? That's the thing, you don't. What? I want to play it, though. Well, you can't, because we said no, you cannot play this. Do you see how negative of an environment this breeds? I get it. I get server space. I get logistics. I get needing to pay for stuff. You have to have avenues open. Because remember, Netflix and subscription services in the streaming sector, streaming was the compromise. When everything was on cable, everything was on DVD, coming to DVD, right? Everything was on VHS, you know? Everything was paywalled by, cable, satellite. What did people do? Yar har, allegedly. Yar har. And what did companies do? Oh, well, we'll get Netflix. We'll just mail you the disc to your door, you know. You don't have to worry about it. You can send it on back. We got little red boxes here. You can just take the thing, go, you know. So you have easy to use services, easy entry services like Redbox, like Netflix and stuff like that. You know, and you have other streaming services that are going to draw people back in. But now, and honestly, I have seen, because I'll watch what my parents watch from time to time, because I'll, come over, and I'll look at them, look what they're watching, and, the streaming services now have more ads than the actual thing. It's like it was back in cable satellite in 2005. It's wild. I'm like, mate, you're literally paying for this nondescript Christmas channel, right? Nondescript, right? And it's just like, bro, there's more ads than the actual content. You're kidding me. And so, yeah, you know what people are going to do when you start jacking up prices, when you start saying, oh, well, we own the market now? People allegedly are just going to go yar har again. Remember that was the compromise. Absolutely, it is within the business's right to pull support. Absolutely. However, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and I think that's what they're forgetting.
If we rely on this as the only solution, we're basically gatekeeping classic video games and making it so only dedicated people who are in the know will ever discover these things. And I don't know about you all, but I think that the games that inspired me today to become who I am should be accessible to everyone.
Yes.
Piracy simply can't be the only way.
No.
So, what are companies doing about this?
There's a few good starts out there, with companies starting to take the idea of, for instance, an internal archivist more seriously. I think there are a lot of companies that mean well, and certainly a lot of smaller indie studios who are committed to preservation. But most of the larger studios, regardless of what the top brass might say, are part of the Entertainment Software Association. And the Entertainment Software Association, or ESA, has every time directly lobbied to stop any expansion of preservation efforts.
The ESA's perspective is that if libraries and archives like ours and like many others around the country were able to provide remote digital access to classic games, the notion is that if people can access video games for free from their home, from the library, they're not going to buy games anymore. And if you don't think about that at all, you go, oh, that kind of makes sense. But libraries have not destroyed the book industry. Libraries have not destroyed home video by allowing remote access to movies. Video games are, in the library world, the only exception for remote access. And frankly, it's shocking that this argument had any legs at all.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Beyond remote access, researching classic titles gets increasingly tricky when the means to replicate the game is tied to the hardware it was on. The Wii introduced motion controls, and the Wii U wasn't just an expansion of the Wii with more refined motion tech. It added
The Wii U, to my understanding, at least to how I make this make sense, was the Switch prototype, if that makes sense. It was so close to the Switch in terms of what it wanted to do, but the technology wasn't quite there, or at least the logistics to make it widely available weren't quite there. So the Wii U was there as a stepping stone to actually bring the Switch out, in my opinion.
The Wii U gamepad, and a ton of games were specifically designed around the functionalities introduced. Asynchronous gameplay was easier than ever with games like Nintendo Land, and Runbow, though it does exist on other platforms, had the Wii U exclusive Color Master mode. And what about
Zombie U had a special Wii U interaction, if I remember correctly.
experiencing a Toys to Life game like Skylanders? The Wii U gamepad had a near-field communication technology set built in, giving birth to the Amiibo craze. Games like Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge completely lock you out of the fun unless you had every character. So you needed an Amiibo or some variant of Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Yoshi, DK, Diddy, Bowser, Bowser Jr., and Rosalina. Then there's Pokemon Rumble U, which predates Amiibo on the Wii U, but still uses NFC technology. These are tactile experiences beyond the screen that are additionally of concern when trying to best preserve the context around a game. And it may sound small, but in trying to replicate an experience, you need to think about services that the system had that many cannot be replicated. Games like Splatoon and Super Smash Bros. For Wii U integrated the Miiverse into the stages themselves, but those services have been shut down completely, neutering some of the personality the games were designed around.
Yeah, no, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, the little tingle bottles that were tied to the Miiverse, even before the shutdown, they just completely murked it. They just completely just nuked the Miiverse, whatever it was. I almost said Metaverse. They just completely nuked it from orbit. Just, no, you cannot do this anymore. Now, there were some legitimate reasons for that. Some of the people that could frequent that, but that being said, that is still a minority in comparison to, like stuff like this. Do it for her. Like, just the absolute meme gold that could come from this. It is, unfortunately, just the few bad eggs that ruin it for the rest of us, it seems.
The thing is, older hardware is probably never going to be made again because there's nothing in it for the companies.
Yes.
The best most game companies can do to keep a game alive is to make it work on a newer system. And sometimes that means cutting out some of the features that made them special to begin with.
Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep on the PSP had a multiplayer mode that Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep on the PS3, PS4, and now the new gens, right, including PC, does not have, from my understanding. As far as I'm aware, there was an original PSP mode. It was a multiplayer mode, had some like Mario Kart games, stuff like that, right? Style Mario Kart style games that never came back. We see this a lot in games. I mean, I get it. Some features just don't roll over, unfortunately. However, it is sad when they do go, and it feels like it's being content gated.
There are plenty of games on the Wii U that eventually found second lives elsewhere. Porting games to make them available on other platforms is generally a positive step towards preservation, but occasionally something is lost. And releasing new ports of older games blurs the line between being helpful for historians and actual erasure of gaming history. Take the 2012 Ubisoft title Zombie U, a former Wii U exclusive that built a fair amount of its gameplay around the gamepad. But
oh hey, remember how I just mentioned this? This will add credence to my argument.
Its far more successful 2015 ported version, simply titled Zombie, which is available on the Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam, has eclipsed its original in terms of its availability. The Wii U also has the weird distinction of being home to two wonderful Legend of Zelda ports.
Yes.
Both Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD are arguably improved versions of their originals, but at the time of this video, there are no plans to make these games available on Switch. To further complicate things though, both games used the Wii U gamepad to display the map and allowed for easy item hot swapping. However, with Nintendo having left dual-screen gaming behind, porting these Zelda games again would arguably be a step backward as far as overall player experience is concerned. Having these games easily accessible on Switch would be good, but the Wii U is a unique piece of technology, and each iteration of a game is not the same game, but a distinctly different one. So as grateful as we all may be that we're getting a remake of Super Mario RPG, this guy specifically, it's troubling that there is no legal way to currently play that Super Nintendo classic.
I really hope I bought it, and I think I did buy it. I have to check my Wii U later. So let's take something that Kip knows a little bit more about, right? Let's take Majora's Mask, for instance. Majora's Mask versus Majora's Mask 3D. When Majora's Mask 3D launched, it did neuter some features. You no longer, as Deku Link, keep the momentum for spinning. You no longer get to do that. As Zora Link, you cannot go super fast unless you use magic. There are certain inherent game tweaks that I do feel Majora's Mask 3D is inferior to the original Majora's Mask. You know, as someone that's played it enough, I feel I do have credence to speak there. I was talked to other people who have similar, brought up similar concerns, right, to this. I feel I have credence to speak on this. In regard to, let's see here, Halo 4, for instance, because I played in the public test flight. Halo 4 on the 360. I do not remember gravity lifts ever giving me an issue. So let's say mission 2, you get down to Requiem. There's a couple grav lifts when you're heading through after the first Warthog section, right? Every time I play it in PC, I don't know how they ported it. I always get stuck going up in the gravity lift, and I get stuck on the platform right above me. I don't understand what it is. I don't understand how the port did it. What I can tell you is every single time I am able to replicate it, and I don't know if it's an engine thing, I don't know if it's a port thing. I never remember this occurring even once when I was playing it on 360. So, I mean, maybe someone else knows different. Those are things that I can cite of, they're just the same game, right? Majora's Mask 3D being a more extreme example where it's a full remake, right? There are parts of it that are inferior to the prior. There are parts of the prior that are inferior to 3D. I feel to get the full Majora's Mask experience, you should play both. However, it gets kind of hard when now you can only get physical copies of 3D. What about getting Majora's Mask, the original? Man, do you have a 64? Do you have a GameCube? Do you have a Wii that before the network went down years ago that you got Majora's Mask on the Wii Shop channel? No? Did you get the Wii U version? The one on the Wii U, the port? No? Damn, guess you're SOL at that point. And I hate that I have to say that, because that's not okay. Like, yes, there's no incentive for them to do it anymore, because it's going to be pocket change in comparison to gatekeeping it and, having power over that IP. I can also tell you that in terms of speedrunning, from my understanding, the Wii specific version of Majora's Mask was arguably the best. Something about, I think it's the controls and the lighting in the Wii U port were just different. So you have your N64, you have your GameCube, you have your Wii port, and you got your Wii U port, right? I think it was GameCube and Wii specifically were the best in terms of speedrunning. Someone would have to check me on that as an actual speedrunner, though. So those are just differences, citing and backing his points of why ports aren't necessarily the same game and can actually do harm in terms of preservation.
Frank said in his 2016 talk at GDC,
I would argue that porting by its nature will always be a derivative work. That is not the original work. That is a remake. You cannot port a game without sacrificing something that was in the original. There will be new bugs. There will be inconsistencies. There will be flaws. And while it's sometimes the only valid option, porting a game from source and expecting 100% faithful reproduction of the original is both a pipe dream and a financial black hole. As nice as extra features are to have, a ported game is not the original game, it's a remake. While remakes can be great complementary pieces to the original work, that original work should also be available.
I don't know how I feel on that one. I would have to look more into his citations and arguments.
the results of the study sound pretty bleak. I promise I didn't make this video to bum everyone out. That was never my goal. But I think the information here is valuable.
Yes.
The Video Game History Foundation is now armed with data and is sounding the alarm.
I hope this study wakes people up. For years, me and the rest of the team have known that the availability of classic video games in a legal, safe way has been dire. It's worse than probably any other medium.
We can't afford to sit here and let outdated copyright laws condemn video game preservation to the care of whoever is willing to put in their own time and effort into this work for free and at their own legal risk, because that won't work forever.
I hope that parents in their 40s and 50s who grew up with games and don't even think about them these days, I hope that they catch a headline in a newspaper or like hear a segment on NPR or something and go, whoa, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That almost 90% of the games I grew up with, people can't play anymore. We are involving ourselves in trying to push for an exemption to copyright laws that allow games to be accessed remotely legally, but we want the public to get in on the fight too, even if it's just in terms of just being armed with that knowledge, because I don't think most people understand how bad the situation is.
They don't.
Step one coming out of this study is simply that we get this new allowance for video game preservation. That rather than only allowing libraries to preserve and share video games on site with someone physically inside their library, people should be able to discover and explore these games from wherever they are in the world.
I mean, the technology already exists. Does the Switch physically not... When you bought Kingdom Hearts and Crisis Core for a Switch, did you not physically... You don't own the game. You own the ability to stream the game. And this is actually why I did not buy Kingdom Hearts on Switch. This is why I did not buy Crisis Core on Switch. Because I personally refuse to pay full price for a game to own the ability to play the game as long as the game's servers are up and running at the company's discretion. To me, that is a malinvestment. That, once again, not financial advice. Obviously, your situation is your own. Do what you... If you think it's a good price, if you think it's okay for that, absolutely go for it. Some people don't have the powerful enough hardware. I totally understand. To me, I would much rather go to Epic Games like I did and just buy the Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3, right? I just rather buy it on Epic as a Steam person, than pay to not technically even own the game, to have the ability to play the game as long as the servers are up. That, in my opinion, is an egregious misstep, and to me would classify as a malinvestment in terms of buying a game.
Step two will be building the infrastructure to actually make that happen. It won't be a flip of a switch and instantly all libraries can let you play all games for free from anywhere in the world. Libraries will have to start building these collections in earnest. But once they're allowed to do that, we believe it's going to start opening up a whole new layer and depth for game preservation.
This is just the beginning of a much larger movement, but I hope that all of this has shown you something about the complicated world of preservation. It isn't simply about piracy as much as that helps. It's all about accessibility to the masses.
I'm not worried about people of today. I'm worried about people of tomorrow, and I'm worried about people who aren't necessarily in the classic game community being able to discover old games.
If we want to be serious about video games being a really important part of our culture, preservation has to mean more than just the ability to download a set of ROMs. It needs to be a thriving and sustainable scene of discoverability and insight, context, and exploration.
Sound off in the comments of your favorite games that are sadly stuck on antique consoles, and let's all push forward to make a better future for gaming. To read the full study, it's down in the description for you. And if this cause strikes a chord with you, please share the study or this video to keep the conversation going. I've been Jirard the Completionist. Thanks for watching, and happy gaming.
He brings up a good point. He really does bring up a good point. And rather than, oh, haha, funny, Kip reacts, right? As a content creator, I do feel it is my duty to bring up certain things like this, to bring up certain things that I feel are problematic, things that I feel strongly about. Yes, Jirard, there are games that I have on antique consoles, and I'm sure you do as well. I mean, I saw your N64 collection, legendary. Pokemon Coliseum, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Pokemon Black, Pokemon, all the Pokemon now on the 3DS right now. Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Crystal, Gold, Silver, all of those. My Fire Red copy is stuck on a cart, right? What else can I cite? Code Lyoko for the Wii, right? Code Lyoko DS when I had it, right? One of the games specifically was the first one. But you get what I'm saying, is that there are so many games we can list offhand that are having this problem of companies don't want to push it. And you could put on your tinfoil hat and you could say, well, due to us giving the modern game industry crap about how games used to be better, they're trying to censor this. I feel that gets into a weird tinfoil hat territory. I'm not a fan of that argument. However, I will say that if someone wants to play something, and I'll just use my analogy of let's go play Pokemon. Somebody really wants to play Crystal because Suicune's their favorite Pokemon, and they really like the sprites. I personally don't like the 3D anymore in Pokemon. I think it's detracting from the games. Much as I want it, just go back to sprites at this point, personally. If someone wants to play Crystal, someone wants to play Fire Red, to understand why I love the Sevi Isles so much as a concept, as a design standpoint, right? I can't do that because I can't in good faith tell somebody to spend hundreds of dollars to get antique hardware that realistically, because of these effectively sanctions in place, right? Well, I think sanctions is too strong a word. The inability to get it in place is going to lead to a third-party market where repros are going to reign king, and you can get in trouble for being in possession of a repro. I don't agree with this, and I do think this is something that does need to be discussed. I do think this is something that needs to be pushed. What I would like to ask everybody here, absolutely, feel free to leave comments, feel free to leave a like if you'd like, absolutely. What I would ask everybody, if possible, go watch the original. This companies don't want you playing classic games from Jirard, the Completionist, and please share the original video, because it does help his video in the algorithm. I'm more than happy to react to this. I'm more than happy to add commentary. I'm more than happy to say how much of an awesome piece everyone in this did, or awesome points everyone brought to the table in this. I do think this is something that does need to be addressed, and pushing the original source material, I feel, will go leaps and bounds in this. So if you did like it, I would definitely please recommend you watch the original, even if it's on the background, right? Make sure it gets that watch time in for the algorithm, and make sure this is able to reach as many people as it can, because this is something that it doesn't affect us as gamers. It does affect us, don't get me wrong. Not just us, though. It affects people that used to play games. It affects people that want to play games. It affects people that will play games in the future. And if we don't course correct and fix problems now, they will only get worse.